In this video, we will do the economic application of second order difference equations. This is actually a famous model which was presented by Paul Samuelson, who was the second economist to get the Nobel Prize. So he gave an idea which was the mixture of multiplier, which was given by Keynes, and he introduced the concept of acceleration in it, and their interaction is what he put forward. And in this video, out of the 3 videos that we will do, we will talk about the framework, that what was the framework of this interaction model in which these two concepts are interrelated. So it is an economic application of second order difference equations, and it is a dynamic process because in this process the income determination is done while we use the concept of acceleration in it. Side by side, the process of Keynesian multiplier also works in it. Now we already know that multiplier has the marginal propensity to consume, MPC, in the background of it. So when we introduce the interaction of accelerator with the multiplier, it is capable of explaining the concept of cyclical fluctuations in an endogenous way. It means without any concept of external stimulus, we can explain that how multiplier and accelerator can play their role to form a business cycle. As you can see, a business cycle is depicted here. Recovery, boom, recession and depression are the 4 phases of a business cycle. Here, both the multiplier and the accelerator, they are in a favorable direction and they lead to a boom. Here, they in an unfavorable situation, due to which they are leading to a depression. We can explain it further with the help of this flow of some terminologies. Here we are trying to explain the concept of recovery or boom. When a recovery or boom is happening, it is expected that there is an increase in the autonomous level of investment. The knot, it represents the autonomous level of investment. Due to this injection and via the multiplier, which is based upon MPC, because we know the formula of multiplier is 1 over MPC, 1 minus MPC. So this formula guides us that via MPC, the multiplier will happen, which is represented by K, and that will give rise to an increase in the national income, which is greater than that the value of the introduction of investment. This is the Keynesian concept that we have already studied, but after it, the concept brought in by Paul A. Samuelson is explained, and it is known as accelerator because it enhances the process of multiplier, because when the national income has increased due to some increase in autonomous investment, it is likely that the people who are the investors, they expect that the consumption will increase, because when the national income increases, definitely the people are having higher incomes than before and they will start to consume more. So the investors, they, in anticipation of higher consumption rates, they start to invest more and they are inclined or induced. This is why this increase in investors, due to their expectations, in this case favorable expectations, is known as the increase in the level of induced investment. And once the investment increases, again the process of multiplier can increase and it can give rise to higher levels of national income. And once the national income has increased, it can again trigger the accelerator. So you see, this cycle will continue and hence it can lead to magnification of this favorable process of increased investment and increased national income, leading to a boom or recovery. Now the reverse can happen if we have a depression or recession, and in that we can expect that investment has decreased due to some exogenous factor, that is the autonomous investment. If it has decreased, the national income will also decrease by the effect of multiplier, which is based upon MPC. And when the national income decreases, the investors, they have now unfavorable expectations regarding the consumption, because the whole of the national income has now decreased and they expect the consumers to spend less. So this process of their response towards the investment, which is known as the induced investment, because it is induced due to the decrease in the national income, is now taking place, and this effect is known as accelerator, as we explained above in the case of recovery or boom. Now this decreased level of induced investment will further decrease the national income via the process of multiplier, and this multiplier is again definitely based on the value of MPC. The decreased level of national income can further decrease the induced investment, and this process, if continued, can give rise to a depression via going through a recession. So this is how an interaction of multiplier and accelerator can help us to understand the phenomenon of the business cycle without the involvement of any external stimulus. Now we have the three variables that compose the expenditure equation of national income, and that is the level of national income at a certain point over time, that is T, has three components. These three expenditure streams are there: consumption, investment, and government expenditure. So all of them are dynamic because we have time in their subscript. Now we start with the first one, which is consumption. So the consumption is envisaged as a function of not the current income, rather the income from the prior period, because it usually happens that people work for 1 month, for example, and they get their wages or salaries in the next month or at the end of the current month. So they spend that amount, or it becomes their income for the next time period. It means that if we are consuming now, it is basically earned in the last time period, that is y t minus 1. So this is a more realistic consumption function, and we make this a function here. We also bring simplicity by making it strictly proportional, and by that we mean that this would be the relationship, that the consumption here will be dependent upon income. A positive relationship will be there, but the intercept will be equal to 0. Intercept, if it is equal to 0, it is going to decrease one of the terms and make things slightly easy for us. This is why you can see that there is no intercept over here. Gamma is the slope and the intercept is omitted here. CT is the current consumption and YT minus 1 is the income earned in the last time period, and no intercept is there. We know about gamma. It is the value of MPC, which is usually between 0 and 1, that we have already understood. Investment, now let's talk about this part of the expenditure stream. This is in this case, induced investment is what we are considering, because the process is induced due to the expectations that are built on the side of the investors. It is a function of prevailing trend of the consumer spending. As I was saying, that the expectations regarding the consumption, so the prevailing trend of the consumer spending is what is going to be observed by the investors. If they are consuming more, if they are likely to consume more, they will start investing more. So an increase in the investment, that is the induced investment, will take place, and that will lead to a higher level of income, and that will happen through the multiplier. So investment can be explained in the way that this induced investment triggers the acceleration mechanism in the model. Now, consumption has to be explained and how it actually affects, mathematically speaking, because from a real life scenario we have understood it and visualize it. But let's see how it can affect the investment, and let us assume that delta Ct minus 1 is the consumption increment. It means that it is equal to this value. It is the consumption increment, the increase in the consumption from last time period. So we can write it in this delta notation. It is also acceptable, this difference, and it affects the level of investment via this constant of proportionality, which is symbolized by alpha. Now it is explained that this delta term can be written in this way that I have already written, and we write this term instead of the delta term. Now this alpha needs to be explained. It is considered to be positive because if the consumption increment is positive, the investment will increase. In other words, if the consumption is increasing over time, the investment will increase because the investors now are having a positive response from the consumption side. They expect that there will be more consumption in the next time period, and they will be interested in investing more. Now the relationship, if it is positive, it has to remain positive. So this constant of proportionality is neutral in nature because it is assumed to be positive. Otherwise the relationship will reverse, which is not logically correct, that if the consumption is increasing over time, the level of investment will decrease. This is not logical, so we have to keep this a positive value. So you see that alpha is considered to be a positive coefficient. So the relationship between the two is positive. That is the relationship between investment and consumption pattern. Now this alpha needs to be given a suitable name, and it is known as acceleration coefficient because this is actually triggering the process of acceleration, because due to multiplier, investment increased the level of national income, due to which now investment is increasing. So this is the process which is acceleration, and this coefficient is being used to explain that portion of the consumption increment which is going to be converted into investment. So accordingly it is known as the acceleration coefficient. It is assumed to be fixed to keep the things more comprehensible and easy. So it is assumed to be a fixed ratio. So if I borrow this equation and if I rewrite it for alpha, alpha would have this value, and if it is this value, it means that we have already assumed that it is a fixed value, it doesn't change. So this value would also be a constant value. Alpha is a constant. So just a mathematical verification of our assumption of its constancy. Then we have the third part of the expenditure extreme, which is the government expenditure. This is the third component of the government expenditure. It is known as GT, and it is considered exogenous, though it is not necessary because the government can decide to spend on the basis of its income or any other factor. But here we are assuming that the factor on the basis of which the government expenditure is being made is exogenous to our system of equations. So we write it G naught, that is autonomous investment. The induced part is not involved in it. However, we can include, if we want to further elaborate this case, by including that possibility. So now we have all these three equations in which we have the consumption stream, we have investment stream, and the government expenditure stream, using which we can develop the solution of this multiplier acceleration model. So this is the framework that we were trying to build in this video. And in the next one, we will try to solve this. Thank you.